For those of you that may not know me, my name is Burley Wright. I'm with the Department of Education, Office of Federal and State Accountability, McKinney-Vento State Coordinator, and I'm Kim Humphrey. I work on the McKinney-Vento team and foster care point of contact. So today what we're going to do is we're going to review the definition and authorization of McKinney-Vento. We always have to do this to kind of level the playing field for what McKinney-Vento is and how to understand it. And then we're going to understand how to use the LEA McKinney-Vento data to help determine your Title I Part A set aside, also known as TIPA, so for short. You know, we love acronyms, but it is a very helpful acronym. So, and then review some allowable and unallowable expenses, and then develop ideas for how to best allocate and spend your homeless set aside to best meet the needs of your students that are experiencing homelessness. How many finance people are in the room? Great, okay, good. I see a lot of McKinney-Vento liaisons in the room. Finance, Title I. Okay, great, good. Well, welcome. This is what it's all about. It's about collaboration. It's about talking to the right people at the right time to make a plan. Like I said, Kim and I, we're with the Office of Federal and State Accountability. We're part of the SAS team that serves our Title III, our Title I Part C migratory students, McKinney-Vento, and our foster care students. And our mission is to ensure equitable access to education for these special populations that we serve. So why do we focus on homelessness? You've heard me say it once, you'll hear me say it another 10 times. Because homelessness negatively impacts the children and youth development, their health, and outcomes. And those impacts are far worse than just the effects of poverty. So the transition, the moving all the time, that uncertainty, it is shown that that piece of our students experiencing homelessness, their outcomes are far worse than our students that are experiencing poverty. And we also know that education is the best antidote to homelessness, right? Whether you're in kindergarten, preschool, or your secondary or post-secondary. So we want those kids in our schools, in our classrooms, getting the services that they need and deserve. This part down here is a link to Schoolhouse Connection that talks about homelessness and the traumatic experience and the harm that it does for our young children and the delays that it causes over time, and how the longer a child is experiencing homelessness, the worse those impacts are for that student and the cumulative effect of them. So with TIPA, we have this ability to provide critical assistance to students that are experiencing homelessness. You can see here, I'll let y'all read this for just a second because you don't need me to read this to you. But there's just some good data and points. And we know that when a student, while you're reading this, I'll tell you, we know that when a student moves to a new school, it takes 4 to 6 months to recover academically. So you could have a child that's experiencing homelessness that's moving 2 and 3 schools a year. So, and year after year after year, possibly. So again, this is where the McKinney-Vento law comes in. You can provide those wraparound services to provide a more stable education experience for that student. And as we know, homelessness can be associated with lower standardized test scores, reading, spelling, and math. So we want to try to intervene and stop that from happening. Children and youth experiencing homelessness are automatically eligible under Title I Part A, even if they are not attending a Title I school. I think we know that, but it's always good to kind of set that precedent. Additionally, automatic Title I Part A eligibility allows students in homeless situations who are doing well academically to receive additional non-instructional educational related supports that are needed to succeed in school. So some additional support for our students that are maybe doing well academically, but maybe they need some additional, maybe they need mental health counseling, maybe they need medical care, dental care. So we're going to look at some data because this is how we talk with, as our liaisons know, they're in the room. We talk about looking at your LEA data and then meeting with the team to kind of make a plan for what your TIPA could look like based on the students in your district, and also the funding that the district may receive, whether through subgrants or community involvement. So Schoolhouse Connection has a great dashboard. It will break it down by the state, the district, and even the House and Senate districts for both the state and the federal level. So you can really hone in on what's going on in your district. And so the 22-23 data is up here. That is the most current data that we have, like national, on a national level. So here's a snapshot for South Carolina. And again, I'll tell you, this is the 22-23 school year. And what I like about this too, it also talks about the funding that South Carolina receives. And you can also go in and you can look at our neighboring states and you can see what they receive as well. So, and I love that it also includes, go ahead and talk about our one-time recovery efforts with ARP HCY, which is why this refresher course is really important, because we don't have ARP HCY anymore. So we don't have as much funding as we used to for our students that are experiencing homelessness. And so we did, as a state, receive $13 million. We were able to disperse across the state, as you all know, to districts. And we know that was very impactful. You can look here, it was like 13,483 students. We're going to show you some data in the slides in a few minutes that shows you our new numbers that, and unfortunately they're going up. And at the same time, it means that we're identifying our students because we know that they're there. We're still under identifying as a state. We're not quite at the national level yet. So we know that there were some kids that were missing. And so we just have to be diligent and find them and then connect them to these resources. So our individuals that are eligible for McKinney-Vento are those that lack a fixed, regular, adequate nighttime residence. So it is our shelters, hotels, motels, sharing the housing of others doubled up due to economic hardship or similar reason. Our families that are fleeing some sort of violence, that is all, they're categorically eligible. Our migratory students that may live in any of the above circumstances that I've just mentioned. And so I'm going to focus on the fixed, stationary, permanent, regular, predictable, consistent basis. Adequate is where I'm going to spend a little bit of time. See if I might spend a minute talking about that. So lawfully and reasonably sufficient utilities and running water. I think 1 in 30 homes in South Carolina don't have a full kitchen. I think it's 1 in 38. I'll be honest with you, I could have that reversed because we don't have that slide up. But 1 in 30 homes like that. 1 in 38 don't have proper plumbing in their bathroom. And also adequacy is like mold, vermin infestation, lots of things. So we have a substandard housing problem in South Carolina. And I would have to guess those may be a lot of the children that we might be missing. But it's going to be harder to find those students, right? But I'm not saying that they're all in substandard housing, but I think that is an area where we might be missing some of our students. And so the housing is sufficient for meeting the physical and psychological needs typically met in a home environment. And so, as I mentioned previously, you saw the data for the 22-23. That was a little off. Our numbers were really through our power school were a little bit statewide, a little bit over the 13,400. But the 23-24 school year, we're kind of around just under 16,000, which is, if you have heard us talk before, we were at our, about 2025, we wanted to hit the 2.5% identification rate for South Carolina. We're close. We didn't quite get there, but we're close. And we're doing all the things that we need to do to get there, to be at that, to match that closer to the national average, which now is really more like 2.8%. So here's the authorization about the Title I set aside. I mean, we all know that we have to do this, but what does it mean? And how do we really drill this down to make the biggest impact for our students that are in our experiencing homelessness? So the homeless set aside, here are some reminders as a refresher. It's above and beyond what is typically provided to students experiencing homelessness under TIPA. An LEA should not reserve the same amount every year, year after year after year. Why not? Numbers change, right? Right, numbers change and needs change, right? Because if we're just doing the same thing, then maybe you're not really coming together to think about what this group of students might really need to be successful. And we're thinking like beyond the notebook and the pencil. So we evaluate, is the set aside improving the outcomes? Is it sufficient to meet the students' needs? And it's all the students. And so you got to look at all the students at all the schools, which is why it's so important that there's a lot of cross, sectors here. You've got your, McKinney-Vento liaison, your finance person, your federal program director, your Title I coordinator, all the people at the table, and even more so than that. We also, as you have heard from maybe a few years ago, we no money parking. And TIPA has the same claiming expectations under Title I. So really want to look at that. So don't park the money there. I know we had we were monitored. Our office was monitored a couple of years ago, and so we're really trying to bring some of these things. There was a big focus on the Title I party set aside with that monitoring, and so we're trying to make some changes. And so we're bringing them to you all so we can all be compliant, but also go beyond that compliance and really look at the needs of our students. And as another reminder, foster care transportation cannot be included in your TIPA plan. So, yes, Terry.
I'm sure people talk about this or not. I know this isn't about foster care, but are there other items that can be used for foster care to purchase from Title I?
The transportation is the main. You just have to have your own set aside for Title I for a foster care. There are other things that could cover foster care, but it's not like a foster care allocation.
Yeah.
It's more like into programs that are already made through your Title I plan.
Yeah. So, but under, and I think the reason why there was some confusion for so many years with the foster care transportation under TIPA is because there was, before the McKinney-Vento Act was reauthorized in 2015-16, so it's been almost like at this point, 9 years, foster care children were included in McKinney-Vento just automatically, and that's no longer the case. So I think there was for many years, there was some confusion about, where to put foster care transportation funds.
So foster care can't be coming from this funding, but can the Title I, the homeless, the McKinney-Vento students, their transportation?
Yes. So TIPA, yes. So the Title I, that's where the key piece, because it's the homeless set aside, not the foster care, because there is no foster care set aside.
Well, it's not required.
It's not required. They can't. Yeah, they can't. I mean, yes, it's not required like this is required.
But a little more into that. So in certain school supplies, for example, they're purchased for McKinney-Vento students, and there are extras left. For example, and foster care children are in need of those supplies, are able to share them with foster care or not?
Not if they're bought with set aside. This set aside, yeah. Good questions. And as we talked about, sufficiency is key. So it's having that conversation. I noticed, unfortunately, this talks about consider the funding streams that are connected. It's talked about EHCY, so the Education, Homeless Children and Youth Grant. That is a 3-year competitive sub-grant that comes out of our office once every 3 years. We currently have 40 sub-grantees, which we're super excited about. But we could, in years down the road, maybe have more if a district is interested in applying. That certainly would be welcome. Any other ESSA funds? It says ESSER, but we know ESSER is so I need to take that out of the slide. But looking at also what we really some community support that you may have. Pull that into the equation too, because if you know that this faith-based organization gives you all of these school supplies, and then you don't really need to put in for school supplies. You just kind of have to really, especially now with art having gone away, we really have to look a little more detail at this. And then in your plan, your justification and gems, you have to do like a set aside narrative. Like, what's your plan? You give justification for what you're going to do. And then at the state level, then, we work with the Title I team to make sure that it's sufficient and it's allowable. All of those things are covered. So, in education, I've said this before, we like to have acronyms. And so we were with TIPA, we want to make sure it's allowable, sustainable, self-sufficient, and sustainable. I stress a lot every time I say that sometimes, but you can make up your own acronym. But really, it's
we wouldn't, but if you
would. But if you wanted to come up with an acronym, we kind of put it out there for you. But really, it's allowable, sufficient, and sustainable, because you do want to have sustainable funding. You need to have sustainable funding for through the Title I Part A set aside. So if those are your three key words that you look at when you're having those meetings, I think that will help you serve your students in a very impactful way.
It's hard to follow that. All right. So if we're kind of looking at this strategically of how we can move forward from this point, the first thing that you want to do is reflect on your specific community, where are your supports, and what funding do you have. If you're a district that has our EHCY subgrant, then your Title I set aside is probably going to look a little different than a district that all they have is the Title I Part A set aside. If that makes sense. Review the data. So a couple years ago, we did a McKinney-Vento needs assessment. I think we talked about this, hit this a lot for a couple years. A lot of the McKinney-Vento liaisons worked on those needs assessments, set goals. A lot of those were tied up in those ARP funding. And so I think what we're going to notice, we're probably going to do another push in maybe a year or so to kind of redo the needs assessment, or at least reassess if it's still accurate. But we really want to look at the data. Do we have high schoolers? Do we have middle schoolers? Do we have a lot of young children? Like, what are our needs? And then with that data, go ahead and amend your Title A, your TIPA reservation. So obviously, you could have more people at the table than this, but we would at least expect that the Title I coordinator, McKinney-Vento liaison, and someone from finance, you guys would all be kind of collaborating together, making sure that you're all on the same page. There could be others that are at the table, but those are where we would say you should start. Now, the interesting part about all this is, I think obviously TIPA has been around for a while, and that has been a thing that has been able to be, where the funding comes from. But we're actually starting to track it on a federal level. So for those of you that kind of do the EdFacts, every year we'll be submitting what your Title I Part A set aside is. And that started in 22-23. We were also one of those lucky districts when we got monitored. We were one of the first ones to help display that this is an important thing that we all should be doing. So it is kind of a new thing that's being tracked, but just to let you know that your Title I Part A set aside is part of that reporting. We uploaded a planning document for every district into the McKinney-Vento Google Drive. So if you are not a liaison for your district and you want to have access to this document, let me know before you leave here. But we kind of created a planning worksheet with all the data from, I believe this was 23-24 school year. So if you have access to your Google Drive, I've already put it into like your LEA's folder. If you don't have access to that Google Drive, let me know. I can send you the document, but it kind of has your school district, what your current TIPA allocation is, has it changed from the last year, how many, basically what's your per pupil amount. And that will kind of help you give maybe some reflections as you talk about this coming year and what it will look like. So everyone loves charts and graphs, right? I guess we're all math people. We found that out this morning. So I just put up a nice little chart to kind of show you from 22-23 and what it looks like in 23-24. Looking at that, what do people notice?
It's increased.
More spending in the lower range.
Yeah, we noticed, at least in the past year, we noticed that our allocations have actually dropped per student. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It could mean that we're actually evaluating our needs and we're using the Title I Part A set aside when we need to use it, and we use other funding when we don't need to use it. So that's exactly one thing that we saw. We also, though, even though we did drop some, we saw a little bit more increase in that middle range. So maybe some people, that were doing lower actually did increase. So this is what we found, that there was an increase from less than $25 per student. Again, most of that, I'm guessing, is because districts were prioritizing those ARP funds, and that's exactly what you should do. TIPA says if you have other funds, use those first. This is the last resort. So we're guessing that's why we saw our TIPA drop. So we could, think about that as a reason why. Like I said, we did see an increase in that middle range, kind of that $26 to $99. But overall, 58 districts stayed the same. And so that's why one thing what Burley was mentioning, it's not bad that maybe your Title I Part A set aside would stay the same, but we would need some reason as to why, especially if your numbers are fluctuating and the needs are changing. And then, as we said, 10 dropped and 8 went higher. And again, I think next year is when we'll start to kind of see it kind of not fluctuate as much, because that ARP money is gone and that's just not able to be used. So what does an LEA include in their TIPA? Obviously, we can have programs. We want to build capacity, so positions could be included in it, and then obviously transportation. This document, we actually created a SCDE resource. We have gone through different versions of this and have come to kind of a final version that we've come to. It will give you kind of a summary of TIPA, and then it will give you some very tangible ways that you can spend the funds. So these are some allowable expenses. Clothing, especially uniform, any kind of requirements for school dress, personal school supplies, student fees, birth certificates, immunizations, personal hygiene, emergency food, medical, dental, eyeglass and hearing aids, counseling services, outreach to students and shelters, obviously that excess cost of transportation, laundry detergent, tutoring, after school, summer activities, air mattresses, bedding, blankets. We wouldn't say like mattresses, but air mattresses, especially for our students that are frequently moving. McKinney-Vento staff members. Transportation to and from school activities, so not just that get to school, get home from school, and then counseling. Obviously, this is not an exhaustive list. If you have a need and you connect with us, Title I office, we can chat about it. We really actually want to start having more conversations around what are the needs and can it be in TIPA. These are some things we know for sure cannot be, so we can just help you not know that for sure. Obviously, no rent, deposits or utilities. In fact, none of the school funding can be used for that anyway. Motel and hotel stays, those were unfortunately our art funds that are gone. So we cannot use those in the TIPA. Promise hire tickets, obviously these non-educational field trips, yearbooks, class rings, and gift cards. Any questions with allowable, unallowable?
Can you do, you can't do class runnings, can you do graduation attire?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we would say those are essential to graduation. And again, you may not have a specific question today, but those are kind of some specific guideposts that we wanted to share today.
I saw the gift cards, you can do gas cards, correct?
I'm not 100% sure that that is. I know with
You know you can reimburse.
You can reimburse mileage, like for if a Hunt Company Hughes or a parent is doing the transportation, you can reimburse. But with TIPA, the prepaid cards are like a no-no. Like now with not to be confusing, but under EHCY now, after art, all that, everything but hotel motel stays can be used under EHCY. But again, TIPA is more restricted, so you can't really, you can do prepaid store cards or gas cards with EHCY funds. Just frustrating, I know, but that's just the way it is.
And the document it's not uploaded to the Whova app, the new TIPA document, and so we're going to get it uploaded to the Whova app. So this document, it is currently in the McKinney-Vento Google Drive. So it is there in that folder, but if you don't have access to that, we're going to try to find a way to make sure this is uploaded to the Whova app. So, but this list is all there in that document. Yeah.
When it comes to required documents like birth certificates and immunizations, would that include related fees such as if we have to provide an Uber for a parent to be able to take their child to get the immunization or birth certificate? Would that be allowed?
We did want to give you, so we are hoping to do is make a frequently asked question document. So similar, I guess, to how the guidance is written, a question and then a response. We want to make one of those for TIPA on some of these like continual questions that you see pop up. So if you could take a moment and just submit a question. It could be one that you maybe even know the answer to, but you think it would be helpful to have this spelled out in a document that we are giving to the field.
What did you want to know? Like if you were first day on the job, if you've never done this before, like what would be a good question to have answered?
So I'll give you a second just to type in a quick question for us. Because we really want to make a document that's helpful. So please share a question. anyone else need more time? Well, I can put it up at the end if someone needs to come back to it. But we're gonna go ahead and get it finished out so you might be able to have a break before lunch. So as I think we all know, this is an interesting time that we find ourselves in. And if you have not looked up Schoolhouse Connection, we would really, they've been kind of a guiding light and advocacy in this time. And so as of right now, they are kind of our go-to, especially when we're thinking about policy federal updates. And so they've done a really good job. They've been having a lot of webinars kind of walking through all the changes. The short of it is that our law still stands and we're still serving students. But they've done a really good job of making these fact sheets and just really helpful ways of breaking down information. And so we would kind of highlight their work as really helpful and timely and beneficial as we kind of navigate the next kind of couple years of what it looks like to serve students experiencing homelessness. And then obviously we introduce ourselves at the beginning, but Burley and myself, we have divided up the state. So depending on what district you are a part of, one of us is your contact for McKinney-Vento. And so we literally are right across the hallway, well, I could say hallway, but it's really space from each other. So if for some reason you email her or email me, we make sure it gets to the right spot. But please reach out to us, especially regarding TIPA. If there's any questions as we kind of like navigate this, how we're launching it and how we're refocusing our efforts on it, we know that there's going to be questions. So, I don't know, did you have anything else? With that, I'm going to kind of leave this up here. But is there any other questions or anything that we have? We have a little bit of time. If you need help finding your data sheet, or if you're, like I said, not the McKinney-Vento liaison and you don't have access to the Google Drive, let me know and I can email you that sheet so you can see the data from this past year.